All right, good evening. I am Chris Martin. This is Feet Forward with the Illinois Podiatric Medical Association, the May 2009 edition. This evening we have Dr. Michael Chin, who's a podiatrist with offices in Chicago and the North Shore. Which suburb in the North Shore is it?
We're in Skokie.
Skokie, okay. And you mostly treat athletes and handle a lot of sports injuries, right?
That's correct.
And that's why we had Dr. Chin on today, because it's charity walk and marathon training season, which is kind of a funny amalgam of activities. But as you'll see, if you'll bear with us these 25 minutes, you'll see that they're all connected. And the way they're connected is people that are walking oftentimes are not regular exercisers. They may not be committed to a regular regimen of fitness and training. So you get those kinds of injuries. On the other spectrum, you get the intense marathoners, the 5Kers, the 10Kers, people that are training for either a marathon, a triathlon, or a certain kind of run to raise money for cancer or MS or something like that. And a lot of podiatrists in Chicago, a lot of people don't know this, but at these marathons and runs and walks, the podiatry tent is one of the busiest tents in the area, is it not?
Absolutely.
So, and you have staffed some of these tents before. So,
correct.
So tell us a little bit about the kind of activity that goes on there, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the prevention and some of the injuries that we see.
At the Chicago Marathon, we usually see somewhere between 600 to 800 runners in that time frame, typically between the second and fourth to sixth hour. And going into a marathon, a lot of people obviously are training for a particular event like this, and they're running into, for example, the past 2 years have been extremely hot. So
right.
85 to 90 degrees on two of the marathon days. So you're running into blisters, falling off toenails, stress fractures, and things like that that maybe they weren't expecting, obviously, to have during the course of a marathon, 26.2 miles.
Sure.
So for the most part, people are coming in with injuries that are maybe nagging them even before the marathon, and they're just running for a charity, and they're obviously driven and have this adrenaline just going, and all of a sudden they get to the marathon and then something happens.
That's quite a letdown. I'm amazed at what you can actually do for people that come in with any kind of injury from a run. It's almost like a field office or a MASH unit for foot injuries, isn't it?
It typically is. We have somewhere between 20 to 25 cots lined up. When you come in, it looks exactly, if you watch MASH, it looks like a MASH unit. And people are kind of laying on the cots or, sitting in a wheelchair or, hobbling out on crutches. So it's a pretty intense sight when you come down and see a site like that.
When someone loses a nail, can you put that back? How do you do that?
Typically not. At that point, once the nail is come off, you're pretty much without the nail until about anywhere between 8 to 12 months as that nail comes back, later on down the road. Okay. So you're without, unfortunately. So pedicure is probably not going to be a good idea at that time.
No, not at all. I guess not. So since most of our viewers are probably in the more casual sort of charity walk kind of category, for people that aren't exercising regularly or even walking 2 or 3 miles every couple days, what advice would you give to them if they're going to enter the Avon walk that's coming up in a couple weeks, or maybe there's a March of Dimes walk or MS or something like that? What kind of advice would you give these kinds of people?
Most of the time when they come in, or we give a lecture to people as preventative measures, we suggest actually doing a 3-day program, which actually ramps them up to walk that distance. And the 3-day can be a full marathon distance. So we start out, first day 30 minutes. Second day, and spreading them out over basically every other day, so it's a recovery time in between. But you would have 30 minutes, just a nice casual pace, and what that does is it kind of develops the muscles. It also develops the bone, so that you're able to take up the shock from walking. Shoes become really important, and certainly we'll delve into that a little bit more. But shoes and the fit, wearing socks that are appropriate, ones that wick moisture away. Certainly ones that have a nice padding. Those can all be helpful down the road when you're talking about a 2-day or a 3-day walk.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when you said a 3-day program, the first day is like 30 minute walking, then you ramp up accordingly after that. Do you end up do they end up walking the distance that they're going to actually walk?
Eventually, that's what the goal is. And a lot of the programs, such as the Avon Walk, do have coaches that actually walk you through, or groups that you can meet with at the end of, or at the beginning of the training season to try and ramp up the mileage. Usually that 30-minute walk session is going to be for about a month. So you're going to do that for 4 weeks just to kind of get your body in motion. Because a lot of the people are, they're sedentary, or they're doing it for charity. They've never done that distance before. So they end up going kind of, hog crazy, so to speak, and getting out there and really excited. But then they end up with an injury. So, we'd really, try to inform them of the pitfalls of especially something like a thing as easy as a walk.
For the more casual walkers that you see in the tents, what kind of injuries do you see among those people?
Strangely enough, it's similar to what marathoners endure. So the blisters, toenail loss, somebody coming in maybe with a heel that's bruised, Achilles tendonitis, plantar fasciitis, which is heel pain that's associated with kind of extensive, kind of repetitive stress on each foot. So.
And what about the other group, on the other spectrum of the level of activity, the marathoners and the triathletes? Is your orientation to them a little bit different? Do they present with different injuries? Do you have a different sort of prevention profile that you give to them?
We do. Actually, the stretching program is a little bit more involved. You're working, obviously, not just the lower extremity, but you're also working kind of the torso, the upper arms. And a lot of times the catchphrase has been working core strength. So we're working a lot of times with runners who are especially running a distance of a half marathon or a marathon, and trying to strengthen the abdominal section because when you stand tall and stand strong, you don't rely on the legs so much to do the work. And there's been studies that show that. Runner's World magazine has done quite a few spots on core strength. And as we get down towards the foot and ankle, though, we do focus on stability and support. Whether the person has a high arch foot type, maybe they need a more cushioned type of, be it orthotic or shoe. Somebody who's got a flat foot, for example, may need a little bit more support. And there's so many technical pieces when it comes to now running shoes or running gear that it also becomes prescriptive. So you can kind of tweak and modify as you go based on the patient's foot strike and style.
Now, you treat a lot of runners and athletes in your practice, and you probably hear all sorts of stories about shoes, and some people are very intense about certain kinds of shoes. But to the casual runner, what are the main things that people ought to look for in a shoe? I mean, does it really matter, in terms of the different model and brand?
Not necessarily brand dependent, but certainly, how the shoe fits on the foot. And I think a lot of people go in and they look at the pretty colors and they see something that looks sharp and maybe has gold or silver on it and looks flashy. But when it comes down to
they actually make me look faster.
They do. And and when you look at a shoe, there's certain pieces that you look for. For example, a flat foot runner may need a stability shoe or motion control shoe, and those are terms that kind of fly around a running shoe store. But you're looking for like a gray material that helps kind of support that collapse of the arch. Somebody who has a neutral foot or a high arch foot needs something a little bit more cushiony. So they may be going into a Nike brand shoe, or they may be going into a Adidas brand, which is known for more cushioning, and Asics or Brooks being a little bit more in line with the stability or motion control shoe. So it becomes very technical, and running shoe stores now have become